Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Kinect, president of Universal Accounting Center. For more than 20 years, I've been working with accounting professionals to help them start, build, and operate successful accounting, bookkeeping, and tax businesses. Here in this podcast, we talk about things related to marketing, selling, onboarding, client relations, client retentions, tech stack, mental health, and so many more things. I invite you to obviously listen to not only this episode, but the many other episodes that we've had. You can binge watch those, listen to them. But today, we're going to have another great expert, someone I'm excited to have on the show. She's someone that I've known for a number of years. She's someone that has started and operated her own bookkeeping business. It's Donna Harris. And Donna, you actually have been doing this for 20 plus years, right?
That's right.
And just to give you an idea of Donna's background, you started this not as an intentional thing. You actually started this seeing how it was needed by someone else, right?
Right. My first college major was actually in computer science. So that was my first love. But I got married and had kids and lived in Europe and came back, and that entire field had massively changed. I came back and there was this internet thing. And so I decided that, accounting lets me get into numbers too. And I started working for a hospital back east and really kind of fell in love with it. Then after I moved to Utah, I started talking to a lot of business owners. One in particular is now my brother-in-law, who kept saying, I need someone to help me with the accounting and the bookkeeping, but I don't have enough work to have someone full-time in my office, and I don't know how to manage this. And I thought, well, I'm really good with numbers, and I can make things balance. I've taken accounting before. I can do this.
I love it. So obviously starting the business, it was an impromptu thing. It doesn't sound like it was very intentional in the sense that, at some point in my life, I'm going to own a business and it's going to be a bookkeeping accounting business. It sounds like you found that need, kind of gravitated towards it. And today you have a thriving bookkeeping business, something that you're very proud of, Bookkeeping Made Simple. Tell us about the business itself. What kind of services do you offer?
So we focus primarily on the recurring bookkeeping needs of small business owners. Particularly the solopreneurs and the micro entrepreneurs, simply because they're so, they're just not well served by the greater accounting community. A lot of accounting firms want the big, $20,000 a month clients, and the small business owners would love to be able to afford that, but the resources just aren't there. So we focus on the very small business, service-oriented, that are just really trying to figure out even how to run a business. Definitely
a need there. These solo entrepreneurs, these small businesses, I strongly believe they need the services we're offering. So what's a common myth that individuals have of who you are and what it is you do?
A lot of them think, well, first of all, the most common one is that I'm a CPA, which I am not. I have a bachelor's in accounting and I have an MBA, but I have never fulfilled the requirements to have a CPA license. And I don't need it. I don't do auditing and I don't work with publicly traded firms. So why go to all that trouble?
I love it. I couldn't say it better myself. So that being a common myth, which I agree, many people just assume because you're in the accounting profession that you are a CPA. Mm-hmm. I likewise have that same experience. I run an accounting business. I run an accounting school. And as such, people just presume that I'm also a CPA, and I'm not. So that's kind of a common myth on my part also. So what's a piece of advice that you'd give to someone who is considering starting out or is in that beginning phase?
Well, talk to other accountants. I know I've been reading a lot in industry news that there's a real shortage of accountants and accounting professionals.
Yeah.
And I know I have a hard time finding employees because nobody really wants to go into the field, or they think that we're all going to be replaced by AI. I don't see that happening. There's too many judgment calls in accounting.
I agree.
But find out, kind of what you want to niche in. I like small service-based businesses. Other accountants might really like manufacturing concerns or retail, and then really dial into that. And then decide what you really want to do. Bookkeeping is way different from top-down accounting.
Yeah.
And we've had that conversation.
We have.
And accounting is way different from auditing. So decide, explore the field and find out which little niche you want to go into and really focus in on that.
Now, you brought up niching. A lot of people like that. They hear that. They wonder, should they? What advice do you have regarding niching?
Absolutely, they should. It's easier when you're trying to create a marketing plan if you know your niche.
Okay.
To be able to address it to business owners in that niche. And it's also easier to develop the specialized skills you need if you are staying within the niche that you've selected for yourself.
I love it. Do you have any advice on how to identify what niche to go into, or niche for those that are interested?
Well, I think it's going to depend on what you like to do. I don't like to do anything with inventory, personally. I think it's not nearly as much fun as other parts of the business.
Okay.
So I tend to choose to work with service-oriented business owners.
All right.
Businesses that are that are offering services. But if you really love inventory, then that's going to affect which businesses you want to work with.
Yeah, no, that's really, really important, because I believe everybody has that knack of, this is what I've experienced, this is what I know, this is what I've done. Therefore, they're familiar with the vocabulary within a certain industry. And so it kind of helps them gravitate towards what they may be common or familiar with. And then the other part of it is there a demand? Is there actually a need in that place for your services? And can you get enough clients to service that demand and be paid well for your time? So those things can lead as components to which niche you may actually focus on. But then you said, well, the big thing that it does afford you is the ability to be more deliberate in your marketing. Your messaging is more clear. You're able to speak directly to that ideal customer and help them understand how you bring value to the bookkeeping services that you're providing for them. And all those things kind of play into how you can actually become differentiated from your competition. So I liked all that. What's something that running a business, being a owner of a bookkeeping business, has taught you as a life lesson that you're grateful you've learned and wish others would perhaps be aware of it?
Well, number one is I can't do everything myself. It was life-changing when I hired employees and started to realize that the business runs better when I let my employees take care of the day-to-day tasks, and I'm focused on the top-down strategy rather than trying to be the one that's doing the bookkeeping. It's hard to be the business owner and the provider.
Okay.
Because you have to get out and hustle and make sales. But then when you get a client, you have to take care of the client, which takes away from your sales time. And it just kind of creates a negative spiral. But once I started hiring people and started developing a training plan of this is what our system is and this is how we do things, it really helped free me up as the owner to become a business owner rather than being self-employed.
Yes. I love that. That's so well said. Well, first of all, as you're hiring people, you obviously want standard operating procedures, processes, systems that they can follow. And that creates then redundancy in the quality of services that you're providing to your clients. But to your point, it allows you to get out of the day-to-day operations of the business, let them focus on those things that matter to the client. And you get to be more visionary, more forward thinking, and that leader that you need to be. So I'm liking how you're describing that. The next thing related to that is when you're kind of running your business and you're going through all these processes, I'm curious what excites you about the future. What's something that you're paying attention to that you're maybe thinking is going to be influential in your business as a bookkeeper?
Well, the gig economy is a huge thing.
Okay.
And it seems like the further along in time we go, the bigger that is. So many people want a side hustle. They want to do something outside of the regular 9 to 5. And I get really excited being able to tell them that if they do that, they can save on their taxes, for one thing. That creates write-offs for them and creates even more opportunities than they really even realized that they had. There's just so much opportunity out there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up. You know, the gig economy, the side hustle, especially with everyone talking about recession as they have recently, I really feel that that's something that you're going to see a lot of people doing as they look for ways to supplement their incomes. So as they try to hold on to and maintain their current employment, they may be finding something they can do on weeknights, weekends to supplement that income. And rather than just being a hobby, they're running a business. And as you clearly pointed out, there are tax benefits if they set it up correctly and manage it appropriately. And ultimately, it does need bookkeeping. It's not just this side gig that you're doing with Venmo. It's literally a business that's being run with expenses and hopefully profit. And you providing bookkeeping services to them can be very beneficial. So I liked you bringing that up. Thank you.
Yeah, my daughter just started door dashing, and she started calling me, asking, what do I need to keep track of? What do I need to write off? What am I allowed to? And when I started listing some of the things that she could write off, she hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no point in paying more money in taxes than we're legally obligated to. So I love helping people realize just how much they can write off. And kind of as a side point too, the W-2 income is the most expensive money you'll ever earn. So anything I can do to help them offset that and create more of a business rather than just being an employee, unless that's what they really want to do. And some people like that. I think that just benefits them all the way around.
Very well said. And I appreciate your daughter being the example of that, because these people, they get into it and they just don't see all the ramifications of what they're doing. But you're able to clearly point out that there's some positives that can be really derived from them keeping track of things, them recording things, and the bookkeeping plays an integral part of that. So well said. All right. So this may be more on the personal side of things, but what is one of the things that you feel people misunderstand about you most?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm usually pretty much an open book. I went into accounting partly because I could see the ability to leverage the internet that allowed me to be home.
Okay.
So I started my business as a young single mother and was able to kind of arrange my workload around my kids' schedules. So I was able to do that and also even homeschool my kids. And it's been just a huge blessing. So, I'm not sure. I've just been an open book all the way through the process.
So if I'm not mistaken, you have 5 children, right?
I have 5 children.
So you've got 5 children. You're a single mother. You looked at starting your business, growing your business while homeschooling and raising these children. Yeah. And obviously this afforded you that flexibility to take on the clients, work with them, meet their needs, and retain them as clients while basically managing and taking care of your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
it's been fantastic.
I love it because I really believe many of the listeners that we have happen to be in similar situations. And I'm sure the story you're sharing right now is something that can be very inspirational. And so I appreciate that. Regarding this whole journey, do you have any memories of maybe a challenge or a success that you experienced while juggling both the family and that motherly responsibility and being the entrepreneur that you are?
I have been really fortunate that my kids understood boundaries right from the get-go. I've worked from home since they were born almost. So I've been able to teach them just from the day they came home from the hospital almost that when mommy's in this room, we stay quiet. So I've been able to do that really easily. And I recognize other single parents may not have the same experience. Kids are not all the same. Yeah. They may not have that experience. They may have some kids that are more rambunctious. So one of the challenges I would say would be figuring out when a good time to work is and learning how to work asynchronously. So just because my office hours are 9 to 5 doesn't mean someone else's are. And I do work across time zones. So I've been able to figure out how to accommodate that while still keeping my own office hours as a really strict boundary.
So when you're talking about boundaries, this is really important, I feel, because the children, they need to know that when you're in there, when mommy's in the room, she's working and you don't just come barging in. You don't come in screaming. These types of expectations need to be established. And I likewise find the same thing in my own household. When I'm working, I need to have this clear understanding of when I'm in this area doing this thing, you don't just come in and interrupt me. You don't come bothering me. Things have to wait. They will have their time. And I think that's very important, the word boundary that you brought up. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, and it's for the clients too. They know that I'm in the office from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And If they happen to be on Eastern time, well, that's great for them because it's later for them. But if they're on California time, well, I'm not going to be, quote, in the office until I'll be done by 4:00 their time.
Yeah.
So I do have really strict boundaries with the clients too, that
it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. I have had clients call me at 11:00 at night on my cell phone and then get mad when I told them I was sleeping.
Yes. Yes. Well, interestingly enough, I have had numerous instances where they call even, 2 a.m, 4 a.m. And, I just assume they don't expect me to answer, but I am shocked that they're calling. But, let them leave their message and we'll get to it later. And that's totally fine because they're not paying for 24/7 access, right?
No, they're not. And that's one of the things I've noticed with work culture today is people do seem to expect 24/7 access. And if you set those boundaries right out the gate, you end up getting more respect, so that they respect that these are your office hours, and they start to respect you more as a professional because you're strong enough to set those boundaries.
Well said. That is excellent. Just because of respect. I like that. I'm old enough that I remember when the cell phones became a prominent thing in business. In fact, I remember what was called a Nextel. It was kind of like a walkie-talkie where they could beep in without really ringing.
I had one of those.
Yes. And I remember distinctly being on call 24/7. The owner of the company was very, very accustomed to just beeping in whenever. And you really had to turn it off if you were going to a movie or a restaurant, because it was not uncommon for him to just chime in and start, interrupting the day. And then at the same time, I remember when I got my first laptop and the ability to work from home and bring everything from the office to the home and work from home. And initially it was kind of fun. The technology was impressive. It was hip. And so all of a sudden people were, seeing who was the mover and shaker. And I was that one that had that technology. Very quickly, it started to be apparent, I'm not working that 9 to 5 kind of type of thing. I'm on the call all the time, weekends. This is ridiculous. And pretty soon it starts to wear on you. So I appreciate how you said boundaries, because I've gone through this evolution of, it was initially exciting and then I needed to start setting up those boundaries.
Yeah. And if you don't, it's a recipe for burnout.
Yeah.
So I've had times when I've had to do some work on Saturday and it makes me tired for the whole next week. I'm too old to do that.
Yeah, no, you need to reset. Okay, good. All right. So because I transitioned into the personal, I did want to ask, with regards to vacation, because of the burnout, do you have a particular thing you enjoy doing, a hobby, a vacation that you like to do?
Well, one of our favorite things to do is to go down to Southern California. We have friends down there. My husband used to live down in Newport Beach. So we'll go down for long weekends. We usually plan it so that we maybe leave on Thursday and come back on Tuesday. So we're not taking up a whole week.
Uh-huh.
And then I make sure to have my out of office messages on and route all of my calls to my employees and let the staff know that if it's a true emergency and you have to have me on the phone, I'm available, unless I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
And that seems to work really well. Especially now that we have employees. When it was all me, it was really tough to take a vacation. But with the great staff that I have now, I'm able to, quote unquote, leave the office and disconnect. And I know that they're going to have everything taken care of. So. And
how often do you do that? Is this something that you schedule and that you plan regularly in intervals, or what are your thoughts?
We do, actually. We like to go down every 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And then, too, it's been very beneficial. My mother is having some serious my husband's having heart problems. My mother's having age-related health problems. So I was able to pack up my laptop and fly out to Kentucky, where she lives, and stay with her for 3 weeks to take care of her, still be connected to the office. I mean, I worked the whole time.
Yeah.
But just to have the freedom. And I offer it to my employees, too. They don't have to stay, quote unquote, at their home. To go out, be able to take care of my mom, be able to handle business, not have to worry about my business falling apart. It's amazing. So
no, what you're describing is, I think, a blessing of technology is the fact that
yeah,
you and I both, we can work anywhere and everywhere. I was over in Europe earlier this year in May. I was later in various states just with very different conferences going on. And every one of them I was able to work, whether it be on my cell phone or on my laptop. And that wasn't something I could have done years and years ago. But today it's definitely feasible. The employees, you said that you give them that ability to also travel and work. I like the fact that you brought that up, because a lot of times people today kind of enjoy the flexibility that employment can offer, where they can work remotely and basically do it anywhere. So do you have any expectations that you communicate to your staff as to, I just want the job done, period, and I don't care where?
That's exactly what I communicate to them.
Yeah.
I tell them I want the phones covered from 9 to 5. But how they cover the phones is up to them. They're welcome to communicate between each other. And I tell them, this is the amount of work that needs to be done. If you can't get it all done, ask for help. That's what we're all there for. But beyond that, I let them determine their own work schedule. I let them determine their own vacation times. And I know a lot of big businesses are really pushing a return to the office, and I think those are going to be the ones that get left behind too.
Okay.
Because I think the work from home, remote work is an expectation now.
Yeah. For many it is. We've had years of it now, and so I think it is becoming more and more of an expectation. Regarding technology, what technology is it that you use in your office that affords you these flexibilities that you feel are essential to get the work done? Do you have any favorite platforms or tools that you're using?
We use Microsoft for most of our office-related stuff.
Okay.
We chose that over Google. We use SmartLove as our CRM, and all of our phones are routed through that, which is especially nice because I can set it so that all of the staff can see text messages coming in, and they can see whether or not one of their clients has called to be able to return the call if they need to. So that's been really freeing. Before, I had to kind of babysit the phones and make sure the bank codes went to the right person, but now I don't have to do that nearly as much. And then we are heavily invested in the Intuit ecosystem for the accounting side.
Good. Very good. All right. Because I already started the personal questions, and I asked about vacations, do you have a favorite childhood vacation?
We did not do a ton of traveling when I was a kid.
Okay.
We moved I grew up in the north end of Seattle, and we moved from there to Western Kentucky when I was 14. So that's probably the only quote unquote vacation I remember.
Is the move.
It took us 2 weeks to get from Seattle to Kentucky because we were stopping at all these great sites along the way. So
very good.
That's the only time I've been to Yellowstone. We got to do a ton of fun activities on the way. But as a child, most of our weekends were spent helping my dad finish his master's degree in entomology. So we caught a lot of bugs.
Oh, brother.
And then we would go on, quote, adventures. He would wake us up on Saturday morning and we'd go on an adventure and just drive around and see what there was to see.
Yeah, nature, outdoors. I love that. That's good. Remind me, what took you to Germany then?
My previous husband was in the Army. So I come from a really long line of soldiers. Member of my family's been in every U.S. war since the French and Indian War.
Oh, my.
Including both sides of the Civil War.
Okay.
So when I got married, I married a soldier because that's just kind of what I grew up with. I was accustomed to it. So I got to live in Germany for 3 years.
Yeah, and you're fluent in German, right?
I'm conversational.
Okay.
I walked around with the phrase book.
Okay.
And I'm of German ancestry, so those of you that are listening, I look German. And then I had 3 little blonde kids, so I really looked German, and then I would start talking. And my American accent gave me away every time, and they would start saying, well, let me practice my English.
And you were totally fine with that.
Oh, I was a little disappointed. I wanted to learn German better.
That's funny. So with that, what's your favorite holiday?
The 4th of July, Independence Day.
I love it. You had a wonderful outfit on the other day, so that was very nice.
Yeah, that was fun.
And you've got your fingernails still painted as such.
And I still have my nails, my
That's
American
right.
flag nails.
I love it. I love it. So why Independence Day then?
I think it is because of the coming from an Army family. It means a lot to me. I'm a Mayflower descendant. I'm a Jamestown descendant.
Uh-huh.
I'm a daughter of the American Revolution. So when I see the sacrifices that were made for us to be able to live in this country at this time, and have the freedoms that we have, it's close to home. So last year for the 4th of July, we got to go to Washington, D.C. We spent the day before Independence Day at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad retired from the Army after 42 years of service, which is unheard of in the military. You get cut off at 40 as a full bird colonel. And my brother retired as a captain. And all of my great uncles served in World War II. And I've heard their stories. So that's just very, very close to home.
Very personal.
It's very personal. And then my husband's father was a veteran as well. So.
Oh my. Mostly Army?
He was Air Force.
Air Force. Okay. Which once was part of the Army.
It was. It's a transportation arm.
There you go. There you go. So with the background you have with the family being in the services, fighting in the wars, as you've mentioned, I would have to believe Memorial Day, I'd have to believe Veterans Day, Independence Day, those hit home.
They do. And September 11th. So it's not on my list of favorite holidays, but I think it's one that's important to remember. Chris was working for Cantor Fitzgerald at the time and was not in New York that day, but unfortunately had the experience of watching as the towers collapsed. And it was 3,000 of his friends that, I think it was 600 people at Cantor Fitzgerald died. And he knew them. And so that's another deeply, deeply personal holiday.
Wow. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for sharing it. So with that kind of background and experience, when you travel international, what does it mean to come back to the United States?
It's a different feeling, and it's hard to explain. When I lived in Germany, I went to Dachau twice, once by myself, and then I took my mother. And one of my great uncles was one of the first people into Ravensbrück. Another one was a tail gunner in World War II in the Pacific. And I loved Germany. I loved being in Europe. I loved the history of it. We don't have that here in the States. But when you come back, it's just such a different feeling of, and it may just be the feeling of home, because I'm 12 or 13 generation American. But I've also been privileged to watch my kid's dad, who's a Mexican national, become a naturalized citizen and see how much that means to him, and have this reminder that we really are one of the greatest nations on earth.
Yeah. It's interesting, having traveled as much as I have, both domestically and internationally, there is something that I do notice when I've gone to various countries and it's the presence of the armed individuals that are throughout the cities and so forth. And it's striking because it's more so than just what I would consider to be a police presence. And so when you come back through Homeland Security, TSA, and you come back into the States, it's interesting to realize that there are some securities, safeties, peace of mind that I've personally experienced. And hopefully others can relate to this, because I really am quite proud and fond of the United States of America as you're describing it, because we are very blessed here.
Yeah, I didn't notice it as much coming back from Germany, but when I went to Central America, um, everybody, there was armed guards at every location that I went to, and we don't have armed guards at the bank
Yeah.
here. It's just it's like there's an expectation that people are going to follow the law, and I think um, many people may not realize just how secure we are. We don't have to worry about having our country flattened like Poland did so many times. We're protected by two oceans. When we go to war, we send our people off. It doesn't come to us.
Yeah.
So
In many ways, that's very true. Yeah. Times may change, but so far that's been the case.
So far, so good.
Yes. Related to this, I was coincidentally for a conference in St. Louis, and I was taken back by every time I went into a public establishment, they did have an armed guard, whether it be a sheriff out in the front or it was private security, all of which were armed. And it did bring that vibe of I felt like I wasn't in the United States.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting to me. So I have experienced that here.
St. Louis is, I used to love St. Louis. My parents live about 3 hours from there.
Uh-huh.
And it has kind of gone downhill.
Yeah.
And it's been scary since the 80s, but it's gotten worse.
Yeah. And then my son, for a period of time, lived in Baltimore, near Baltimore, I should say. And that was a interesting experience as well. So yeah, there are some scary places by all definition. Yeah. All right. So let's go into another direction then. Give me a favorite holiday movie.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh, that's a good one.
The old one from 1966.
Yes.
Action.
There you go. It's like a must-see every Christmas.
Absolutely.
So do you like the other ones that are of that same genre?
Yes, I do. It brings back a lot of memories.
I have to say the same.
And for the younger generation, that means that there were commercial breaks and we had to rush and pop our popcorn and run back, leap over the back of the couch and be back in time for it to start again.
There you go. No, that is very, very true. And I'm at the point now where I'm getting excited to expose my grandkids to this. So this is actually a great time of my life, just because I get to introduce a whole new generation to it. So it's going to be kind of fun. Regarding all of this, you've shared your uncles, your family for that matter. What influential person in your life has really impacted you and why?
My parents, more than anything. My parents and my husband, Chris. When my father came from a very traditional background, grew up on a farm. My mother is more of a city girl. And when they first got married, my father's father came to visit them. Dad was working at Formica, and Mom was an executive assistant to the company that's now Cintas. So they were both working a lot. And his dad kind of caught my dad doing dishes or laundry or something that is traditionally women's work, and kind of scolded him about it. You should let Clyda do this. This is women's work. And my dad whipped around and said, there's work. It's just work. And it has to be done. And if she's not available, then I'm going to do it. And because the alternative is the dishes sit in the sink and get nasty. And that's how they both raised all of us. And there's, I come from a large family, so I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers. They raised us all that there's no men's work and there's no women's work. It's just work, and just get it done.
Yeah.
And, within my relationship, my husband's in heart failure. Is looking forward to a heart transplant, hopefully by the end of the year. And so I've kind of carried that attitude with me of, just because he can't work much now, or because he's having a lot of bad days and his health is going downhill, I just step in and take care of the gap. There's no men's work. There's no women's work. There's just work that has to be done.
Love it.
And then when he is able to function and is having a really good day, he picks up any slack that I may have left. So That's one of the things my parents taught me. And then my dad was also an entrepreneur. So I grew up with a pest control company being run out of my house. and I saw how mom and dad were able to coordinate all of that back in the day before cell phones, before pagers. I saw firsthand how entrepreneurship really is the backbone of America.
So how does that translate over into the bookkeeping services that you offer and the clients that you work with?
I think that's what really drove me to choose the very small businesses as a niche, because I know they would like to have all the resources that Amazon has or that SpaceX has, but they don't. And I know that the tax code and the accounting rules all apply to everybody if they know what they are. So I try to teach my clients about things that they can write off that maybe they didn't know that they could. I try to teach them not to commingle funds, which is a huge one, so that they can take advantage of the same tax loopholes, quote unquote loopholes, that Elon Musk's companies enjoy, that Amazon enjoys, because like I said, the tax code works for everybody, but you have to know how to work with it.
Very, very true. And I appreciate that. That's obviously a perspective you come from with your parents running a business. You've seen how they worked as hard as they do. So I appreciate that insight. So your business, obviously there's been struggles. I expect that there have been. Sure. What's a failure or a challenge that you experienced and how did you face it?
The biggest challenges that I have had have been with communication. Either I have not set out the expectations for my clients, especially really early on when I wasn't sure what those expectations should be. And then the client would get frustrated that I wasn't reading their minds. So there was that. And then also making sure that I was fulfilling the expectations that I was telling the clients to be prepared for. So it can be hard. Life is happening, and there's times when I unexpectedly have to take a day off. But I do try to make sure that I am living up to my end of the bargain, that my staff is living up to our end of the bargain, and then make sure that there's a lot of communication. That's one of our KPIs now, is to make sure that the employees are communicating with the clients, that they're letting the clients know that, okay, your books are done for the week or for the month, so that the client knows that we're actually doing something. They don't necessarily see what we're doing in QuickBooks. They just know what the dashboard looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're talking about managing expectations, I'm assuming you've got a letter of engagement that you have when onboarding the client that outlines what you're going to be doing, what they should expect, what's expected of them. Can you share any of those types of things that are part of that letter of engagement?
So from the client side, we tell them up front, we expect them to provide us with basically whatever we ask for in order to fulfill the work that we've done. And then we detail how frequently we're going to be in their books, what we're going to do if we don't know what a transaction's for. An example would be if they went to Walmart. You can buy anything at Walmart, just about. So we want to see those receipts. We set up a SharePoint folder for the clients for them to upload all of their receipts so that we have access to that. And it does seem to be that the client, they don't even know that they don't know. So we have to be very upfront and tell them we need these bank statements and this bank access from this date to this date. We need these receipts, and this is why. And once we communicate with them what we're doing and why we need it, then usually they're pretty happy with it. No one's ever explained to them how to run a business. They just know that they're really good at whatever it is that they do, and they didn't like their boss.
So when you're setting up these expectations and you're clearly defining what you're going to be doing, after a period of time, have you ever experienced where it's just not a good fit and you've got a client that's either not doing their part or they're not valuing what you're doing and there needs to be a severing of the relationship?
Yeah.
How's
I
that?
used to actually try to work through that and smooth ruffled feathers and do whatever I could to make it fit. But today I just let them know there's other accountants out there that would be happy to take care of them. I've had clients that expected CPA level services for pennies on the dollar. And I told them, I think you'll be happy with an actual CPA that's in your city that can kind of take your hand and babysit. You're just not paying us enough.
Yeah.
And that's usually what it is they have huge expectations and champagne taste and a beer budget.
I've heard that before, so that makes sense. All right, so let me give you some off-the-wall questions. We talked about working remotely. I've spoken with individuals that are expats that work around the world, travel, some in Colombia, recently Thailand. So they're out there, they're doing this. So I've just got to ask, if you could work from anywhere in the world, where would it be? Where would you travel to and live?
Anywhere with a pool.
Anywhere with a pool. Okay.
Chris would like to move to Thailand, to Phuket. I have not been there yet.
Okay.
So I'm still trying to figure out where I would like to live. But so far, Southern California kind of has my vote. I don't know that I want to live outside the States again.
Okay.
I know that the Deep South is completely off the table. I've spent too many years in the South. Don't enjoy it as much as I used to, but somewhere warm and tropical with the pool.
I like it. That works. That does work. I have learned I don't want to live wherever I vacation. So I have learned that thing. And so I try to keep that simple, but I do love where I live. So living here in Utah has been amazing for me.
Yeah.
But it's been beautiful.
This has been a really good place for us.
Yeah. If you had an opportunity to sit down with anyone, living or dead, and basically have a conversation with them, a cup of coffee together, a breakfast, what would you want to discuss and who would it be with?
Well, living, it would probably be Robert Downey Jr.
Interesting.
And the reason for that, is we've got a picture of Iron Man up here. When we went to go see Iron Man, when my youngest was like 8 years old, it inspired him. He came out of that movie and said, "Mom, I want to be Tony Stark when I grow up." And I would love to be able to sit down with Robert Downey Jr. and tell him that this is this huge, big deal for my son, to the point that he got a full ride academic scholarship to the University of Utah to major in mechanical engineering, because that's what Tony Stark did. So
that's huge.
That is huge.
Yeah, that's life-changing,
and
obviously.
He's still on the dean's list, the good dean's list, not the
good dean's list. All right, good. So you said living. Was there someone then that's passed that you would want to meet with?
Probably Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Oh.
She was the wealthiest woman of the millennium. She was the mother to kings. She was married to 2 kings, and she managed to set up her life the way she wanted it. She's also an ancestor of mine. So so I would love to sit down with her and find out where she developed that strength, because in the 12th century, women did not do that.
Yeah.
But she went on a crusade with her husband, one of the King Louis of France, and she came back and told him to pound sand, and went and married King Henry of England. And she just really lived her life on her terms.
On her terms. Fascinating. Yeah, that would be a interesting conversation to have with someone.
Yeah.
That would be. All right. So I'm going to let you now pick where we go. I'm going to give you 4 topics.
Okay.
You get to pick which topic, and we'll see where we can go with it. Okay. All right. So let me mention which each of these are. All right. The first one is faith. The next is music. The next is family. And the last is work-life balance.
Well, let's talk about work-life balance.
Excellent.
I think that's a huge one.
All right, let's go there. So first of all, do you agree that there's such a thing as work-life balance?
I think it depends on the kind of role you're trying to fulfill.
Okay, what do you mean?
If you are the business owner, you're going to have to work more. But at the same time, there's so many tools out there. I've really gotten into ChatGPT.
Okay.
For at least ideas on how to market my business. Maybe not word for word what the ad should be, but an idea. So we have a lot of tools to reduce the amount of work we have to do, but the business owner is still they're going to be more invested. They're going to be spending more time on it. On the other hand, from the employee perspective, I tell my staff, you will not answer the phone after 5 p.m. Office is closed. You will take your holidays. Office is closed, because they're single mothers, and I just feel like it is so critically important when the children are little, especially, to make those memories. You're not ever going to have them again. My baby is getting married next month. He's 20 years old, and I'm still looking at him wondering where the time went.
Yeah.
And I was able to be there with him more than most working parents are.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, you don't get that time back. Definitely have a work-life balance. What that looks like is going to depend on the person, the role they're trying to fulfill. But I am really strict about not reaching out to employees after business hours or early in the morning or on the weekends. We use a lot of functionality that allows us to send emails later during office hours. It's one of the reasons we picked Microsoft. So I've scheduled emails to staff and clients during office hours to kind of create that boundary and stick to it. But I think it's critical. I hear a lot of business leaders saying that you can't have a work-life balance and own a business. I think they're going to regret that in the future. I think it's critical that you do. You may be leaning a bit more towards work. Some weeks, it's like I was talking about earlier about relationships. Some weeks you have to give it all. Uh-huh. If it's tax season and you're a tax accountant, you're going to have more hours that you're going to have to work because we have a deadline. But if it's later in the year, we can take a little bit more time off. So it may not be a work-life balance day to day or even week to week, but overall, you have to have it for the sake of your relationships, for the sake of your family, for the sake of your own sanity.
There you go. So how would you answer or speak to sacrifice? You're obviously saying that the work is demanding. The owner has to be willing to put the time in for the work, the business to be successful. So what are some of the sacrifices that you feel go into having a successful business, but while at the same time accepting the fact that that balance may not be there with these other elements of the relationships that you have?
Well, I try to make sure the balance is there. So it's not always an 8-hour day. Sometimes I take a little bit more time on the weekend. Sometimes I take a day off in the middle of the week. Uh-huh. But you are working a little extra hard, especially in the beginning, for a payoff in the end. So the sacrifices that I made were largely financial. I passed up opportunities in order to be there for my family. You just have to decide what's most important to you. Mm-hmm. So, and I think one of the big mistakes is trying to be everything to everyone. You have to do what's best for you and your family and your situation. And that's going to change season to season in your life. It's going to change from individual to individual. Right now, I'm in a position where I really do have to take a step back from the day-to-day running of my business because of my husband's health issues, my mother's health issues. And when those are resolved one way or another, then I'll probably dive right back into my business and be working 80-hour weeks again. Yeah. Because I enjoy it.
Yeah. As you're describing this, I'm remembering when I was in my 20s, I definitely worked harder than I necessarily worked smarter, only because it was that brute force of put in the extra hours and that would compensate or make up for different things that I might have been lacking. And I knew with a hard work ethic, I would thrive, I'd be successful. So there were days that I would start at 5 a.m. and I would be getting home at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And those long days became long weeks. And it was through that I was able to be very successful, but that was, for lack of anything else, brute force that I was able to make it happen. But now that I'm older, and as you just said, stages of life, my life is different. I'm sure I could still do something like that if I absolutely had to, but that's not anything I could sustain today.
Right.
I think I'm a lot smarter. I'm able to leverage a lot more. Unfortunately, I can delegate more. So it's not so much me doing any longer. It's me delegating. And so I agree with you. It's stages of life. You've got to figure out where you're at. And I'm in a position right now where I have a lot more demands on me than when I was just a husband. I'm now a husband, father, and grandfather. So, I mean, the list is getting longer the older I get, and those responsibilities all need time and attention. And so I've got to be smarter about how I get things done. So,
Yeah. And I live with a man who is a type A, highly driven personality. He's an options trader. And when he was at the height of his career, he was working from 3 a.m. to midnight every day, 6 days a week. It cost him just, a few little things. It cost him his marriage. It cost him his health. It cost him another marriage. And the big thing is it cost him his health. He's in heart failure at the age of 48. So these sacrifices we make when we're younger and we have the health to do it, we also need to recognize that has to be only for a season, or we can't get his health back. There's just no way.
Yeah.
You can't get time back. Those are the true finite resources. Money, you can always make more money.
Yeah.
But you can't get that time back.
Yeah. So well said. I like that. All right. So let me go through some rapid fire questions for you. And I'm just going to have you pick either or. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, Star Trek or Star Wars?
Ooh. Oh, I'm huge fans of both. Star Trek.
Okay. Breakfast or dinner?
Dinner.
Money or fame?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think fame.
All right. Drive or fly?
I say drive.
Okay. Read a book or watch a movie?
Read a book.
Disney World or Disneyland?
Disneyland.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Okay. This is really good. I'm liking this. All right. So are you a book reader?
I am.
All right. Can you share 3 books that you would recommend that you feel have helped you either with your business or as a leader running your business?
One that I just finished is called Lift.
Okay.
I talked about that. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
It compares leadership to the 4 forces that act on airplanes. So I think that's a fantastic one for leadership. For mental toughness, I recommend 75 Hard by Andy Frisella. Also highly recommend his podcast. He does not use clean language, but he is very direct about what needs to be done to run a successful business. And he does talk about the sacrifices that he made. And then the other one is probably The G Code by Ryan Stewman.
Perfect. That is awesome. The last one, any particular reason why?
Ryan went from being a 3-time felon. Once was entirely his fault. Another couple he was in the wrong place at the wrong time and got scooped up. But he served his time and then went into the mortgage industry. But then they passed the Dodd-Frank law, where as a felon, he could no longer write mortgages. And he completely turned his life around, is now happily married, has 3 beautiful children, just purchased a ranch in Oklahoma, has millions of dollars, and is just this wonderful example of what drive and grit and just refusing to collapse under societal expectations will do for you.
I like that. That's some tenacity right there.
Fantastic.
That is awesome. Okay. Movies. Do you have a favorite set of movies that you like and why?
I have become a lot less of a movie person as I get older. We did watch A Man Called Otto just the other day, and I thought that was fantastic.
All right.
So most Tom Hanks movies
Good.
I really like. And then I really like the Marvel movies.
Oh, very good. All right. So at least 2 genres.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks is a genre and Marvel is a genre. Okay. All right. Podcast. You mentioned podcasts. Obviously, this is a podcast. Are there any others that you listen to?
Those are the big ones. I've started listening to the CFO. I can't remember the name of it now. They're actually out of England.
Okay.
And they talk about different challenges that CFOs face. But the big ones, I think, are Andy Frisella's podcast, and then Ryan Stewman, I think, just ended his. And then whatever I can find on business and leadership on Spotify.
I love it. And of course, building a premier accounting firm.
Absolutely.
There you go. There you
Absolutely.
go. All right. What are some questions that you thought I was going to ask that I haven't yet?
I can't think of any.
Oh, I've done well then.
You have.
I've asked some good questions. I love it. All right. So here's what I'd like to do then. I'm going to kind of summarize what I felt we've discussed and kind of go over a few things that I thought are highlights. And then I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. But before I do that, I just want to point out to our listeners, if you're wanting more information about Donna, some of the things that we've discussed today, definitely go to the episode description. In the episode description, you'll specifically find what is referred to as the turnkey guide to having the premier accounting, bookkeeping, and tax business. It is a turnkey process, a course designed to specifically cover all the facets of what it is you need to be considering as you're starting, building your business. And so I'd encourage you to go to the episode description and take advantage of that free course that's available to our listeners so that you can actually take a few moments and work on your business and reflect on what it is you're trying to do as you're building the premier accounting firm in your area. Now, with that also being said, as a summary, one of the things that I really appreciate about Donna's story is the fact that she shared how she came into this as a single mother. She obviously was able to raise her family, starting her business, homeschool her children, and work with them so that they were raised in an environment where they saw her entrepreneurship and, most importantly, experienced her example. The other thing that I really thought was quite helpful is how she's committed herself, if not niching herself, into the small business world, committing herself to work with those companies that are obviously expecting and deserving of quality accounting, bookkeeping, tax services that she's able to provide to the small business community. The other thing that I thought was helpful is just her respect or tenacity for the small business world. She obviously, with her parents watching them run their pest control business, was able to be raised in that environment, seeing how they just handled work. Her example of work is just work. It's not, dominated by gender or whatever, is, I thought, a very important message to take from this whole thing. I agree. It's just wholeheartedly work that needs to be done, and we just get our shoulders and push forward and make it happen. The one thing that I also would add to this is the fact that with regards to her business, she talked about work-life balance and how there's times and seasons that we need to focus on in our business. And sometimes there's things outside of work that demand or need our attention, and we need to be flexible and willing to give that the attention it deserves. And she likewise was able to kind of communicate this to her employees that they need to take off vacations. They need to work or not work on holidays. They need to not answer the phone after the prescribed hours. All of these things I think were healthy and great examples for us to consider as we're running our businesses. And then lastly, with regards to Donna and her insights, I just appreciate her personality and her energy that she brings to this whole thing. She's obviously very committed and devoted. She's helping her husband, Chris, through these challenging times as he's dealing with health issues, as well as her mother. So it's just basically, I think, a very good whole life example to have on the show today. So Donna, thank you for being here. What closing thought would you have?
Probably never give up. If there's something that you want really, really badly, you'll find a way to have it. If not, you'll find an excuse.
There you go. Very good. All right. So all that being said, just a few quick highlights. One, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to have you actually get notified as to each and every week when we release an episode, having on here the experts as to what it is we need to be working on in our business to actually have the premier accounting firm. At the same time, I want to encourage you, once you've subscribed, is to go back and binge listen to the various episodes that we've done. We have actually on universalaccounting.com a collection of highlights that we've put together as playlists. These are playlists of various topics where we've had guests on that have talked specifically about subject matters related to marketing, sales, services being offered, mental health, and so many others that you can kind of binge watch from various experts that have contributed on those topics. The other thing I want to encourage you to do is also register for GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's an annual event where we get together with all of us as peers to listen to the experts from the stage, also visit and interact with one another as peers to kind of see what everyone's doing and make those connections that we need to to maybe associate and have as affiliates different resources to help our clients. And then lastly, you get to meet the team and the support staff at Universal Accounting, those individuals that are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. The other thing I'd like to also point out with regards to these different resources and tools is we do have free resources that you can take advantage of at universalaccounting.com. So you can go there for each of those different things. And I would encourage you to check those out and see what it is that you can leverage today to help you as you're running your business. And then lastly, if you have any questions about these principles or other things that we've discussed on the show, feel free to reach out to us directly. You can contact us by calling 801-265-3777, or you can visit us at universalaccountingschool.com. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and have a great day. Be safe out there.